ونستعينه ونستغفره ونستهديه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا يهده الله فلا مضل له ويضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وسلم. Alhamdulillah, today is the third part of a series based on the Hadith in the collection of Imam Al-Bukhari. Inshallah, over a few weeks or even a few months, we will cover 500 Hadith from various chapters from the collection of Imam Al-Bukhari. And as we all know, the collection of Imam Al-Bukhari is the most authentic collection of all Hadith. And many of the Hadith we will hear, they're very, very famous, and maybe you've heard of them before in other lessons or at least in the khutbah. Today, inshallah, we will cover Bab al-Tahara, the book of purification, and also Sunnan Al-Fitrah, the etiquettes of the Fitrah. Hadith number 36. Anas ibn Malik رضي الله عنه قال كان النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم إذا دخل الخلاء قال اللهم إني أعوذ بك من الخبث والخبائث. So the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم, whenever he would enter the bathroom, he would make a dua. Anyone know what this dua is? اللهم إني أعوذ بك من الخبث والخبائث. No خبث والخبائث, خبث والخبائث. So he would seek protection from the male and female jinn. Khubth are the male jinn and khaba'ith are the female jinn. So these are the kind of places that jinn, they like to frequent, these unclean places, the toilet. So from the sunnah that you enter the toilet with your left foot and you say, just before you enter, you say Allahumma, O Allah, inni a'udhu bika, I seek protection, min al-khubthi wal khaba'ith. So this is from the etiquette the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam he taught us. Hadith number 37. And Abi Ayyub al-Ansari radiyallahu anhu قال قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم إذا أتى أحدكم الغائط فلا يستقبل القبلة ولا يوليها ظهره شرقوا أو غربوا. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam he said that whenever one of you goes to relieve himself, then he should not face the qibla. Anyone know what the qibla is? What do we mean by the qibla? What is the qibla? You should not face the qibla. The Kaaba, yeah. The direction of the Kaaba is called the qibla. So whenever you relieve yourself, you should not face the qibla, nor should you have your back to the qibla. Rather, you should turn east or west, because if you imagine at the time of the Prophet ﷺ, they were in Medina, and Mecca is south of Medina, correct? Mecca is south of Medina. So Prophet ﷺ is telling them that don't face the qibla, rather face east or west. This shows us the respect Muslims have for the qibla. Not only is the qibla a direction for prayer, but even a time of relieving yourself is forbidden to face the qibla in this situation, or indeed have your back to the qibla. The problem then arises, what happens if the toilet in the house is in the direction of the qibla? Anyone guess, what should you do?
Just tell everybody a bit.
Okay, this is something actually which some of the Sahaba used to do. They would make inhiraf, meaning that they would try to face away from the qibla if they found that the toilet had been in the direction of the qibla. However, some of the ulama, they say that this hadith about not facing the qibla or having your back to the qibla only applies outside. So if you're relieving yourself outside, then this would apply. However, if you're relieving yourself indoors, which is usually the case for most of us normally, then in this case, it doesn't matter whether you face the qibla or not. Okay, so if you had a choice, if you were camping or trekking somewhere and you wanted to relieve yourself, then you should try to avoid facing the qibla or having your back to the qibla. Hadith number 38. عن أبي قتادة الأنصاري رضي الله عنه قال قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم إذا بال أحدكم فلا يأخذن ذكره بيمينه ولا يستنجي بيمينه. Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم, he said that whenever one of you urinates, whenever a man he urinates, then he should not take hold of his penis with which hand? Right, okay, the right hand. He should not hold his penis with his right hand, nor should he clean himself. So if somebody did number 2, should not clean himself with his right hand. So in Islam, the general rule is that all things which are noble and honorable, they are done with the right hand, like for example, shaking hands or taking and receiving things, correct? It's surprising how many brothers they do it with their left hand. I always try to correct them. But it is surprising that many people, they don't know the simple etiquette of eating with the right hand, shaking hands, taking, giving, all of these things are done with the right hand, and the left hand is generally done, used for cleaning. So when someone goes to the bathroom, the hand which they should be using for the actual cleaning operation is the left hand. We all know this? Okay, so this is a basic etiquette of Islam that everyone should know. Hadith number 39, عن أبي هريرة رضي الله عنه قال قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم لا تقبل صلاة من أحدث حتى يتوضأ. That Allah, He does not accept the prayer of a person who makes hadath until he makes wudu. Hadath is a term used by the scholars for being in a state of not having wudu. Like for example, if someone broke wind, then we would say that they are not in a state of wudu, they are in a state of hadath. This is the word they use, hadath. They are in a state of hadath. So the Prophet ﷺ, he said that Allah, He does not accept the prayer of the one in a state of hadath, which is the opposite of being in the state of wudu. So wudu is one of the shurut, one of the conditions of the prayer. Anyone know any of the conditions? Condition means a prerequisite of the prayer, something you have to do before you actually start praying, before you say Allahu Akbar. Okay, there are certain things you need to make sure you're doing. Anyone know any other? I'm joking, yeah. Yeah. Okay, good, yeah. Having an intention is a shart. So you have to have intention. There's other things, yeah, not having a clean mind.
Clothing.
Okay, what about your clothing?
Being clean.
Yeah, you're right. Your aura has to be covered. For a man, it would be from the navel and the knees, and also should be the shoulders as well. And for a woman, it's the entire body apart from the face and the hands. So yeah, you're right. Satr al-awra, this is also from the shurut of the salah. Any other shurut? It's up to the knees, but not covering the knee. You know, it should be covering the knee, but if your kneecap was showing, it would be okay, inshallah. Any other shurut? Okay, you have the shurut, facing the qibla. This is a shart. Being free of najasa. So having wudu, this is a shart. Having also being free of najasa. So the body has to be free of najasa, impurities. Similarly, the clothes, and also the place of prayer. Okay, so these are all examples of shurut, and this hadith, it proves that you have to have wudu for the prayer to be accepted. There are no exceptions to this. You must have wudu. So whether it's salatul janaza or istikhara, tarawih, or the rawatib, or any sunnah, or any type of prayer, you must have wudu. Hadith number 40, عن أنس بن مالك رضي الله عنه قال كان النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم يتودع عند كل صلاة. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, whenever he prayed, regardless of whether it was a fard or a nafil prayer, he would always make wudu. He would always make wudu. So then the question arises, is it permissible to pray all 5 prayers with one wudu? So say you woke up at Fajr time, you made wudu. Is it conceivable that somebody has wudu, the same wudu for all the prayers? Is this conceivable? Yeah. It's possible. It's possible somebody has wudu for all 5 prayers. It's permissible as long as you don't break the wudu with one wudu. However, the sunnah, or it's preferable to make wudu for every prayer, even if you already have wudu. Like now I have wudu. I'm now in a state of wudu, and Salatul Isha is coming. Maybe the brother, he makes adhan for Isha. However, I can go and make wudu on top of a wudu. Does that make sense? You can make wudu on top of a wudu. However, I don't have to. So the Prophet ﷺ, this hadith is telling us, is that he would make wudu for every prayer. This is fadila. This is something excellent to do it, but you don't have to do it. The main thing is you have wudu, whether it's an old wudu or you refresh your wudu. Hadith number 41, عن عبد الله بن عباس رضي الله عنهما قال توضأ النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم مرة. The Prophet ﷺ, he would wash his limbs. Marra means again and again, but what it means in the hadith is once. So in this hadith, it shows that the Prophet ﷺ, when he washed his hands, he would wash his hand once, and then wash his left hand once, and then he would wash his face once, his arms once. Everyone with me? So there are 3 ways of making the wudu. You can either wash the limbs once, which is marra marra, or you can wash your limbs twice or 3 times. Which is the best? 3 times is the kamal. This is the kamal. However, the mujzi, they call it mujzi, the minimum number of times you can wash a limb is once. There's only one limb which you shouldn't do more than once, which is which one? The head. Okay. The wiping of the head, the sunnah is to do this once. However, all the other limbs you can do once, twice, or thrice. You know this? Okay. When anyone can think of a situation where you might only want to wash a limb once? Yeah.
There's a lot of people, or you get allowed.
Okay, yeah, maybe if you're in a hurry. Any other situation?
Less water.
Yeah, when you don't have water. When you don't have water, so sometimes you only have a small amount of water. So in this kind of situation, you wash your limbs once. Yeah? Okay, so this is what's meant by marra marra. Hadith number 42, عن أبي هريرة رضي الله عنه قال أسبغ الوضوء فإن أبا القاسم قال ويل للأعقاب من النار. Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Abu Hurairah, he said, أسبغ الوضوء, meaning that make the wudu very, very carefully and thoroughly. And then he said Abu al-Qasim. You know who Abu al-Qasim is? Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. His kunya. Kunya is like a nickname, which is normally the eldest child, or the oldest son. Like for example, I'm Abu Ibrahim. So this is kunya. And Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam's kunya was Abu al-Qasim. He was called Abu al-Qasim. So Abu Hurairah says that make the wudu properly because Abu al-Qasim, he said, وَيْلُ لِلْعَقَابِ مِنَ النَّارِ. Once he found the companions making wudu very, very quickly. And then he noticed that some of them, they had not washed their heels properly. You know the heel? So the heel was dry. The Prophet ﷺ, he then said, وَيْلُ لِلْعَقَابِ مِنَ النَّارِ. That woe be to the heels from the hellfire. So he was emphasizing that all the limbs which you need to wash in the wudu, they must be wet. They must be wet. So I've seen many people, when they make the wudu, they like wash and go. They make the wudu very, very quickly. They don't take care in the wudu. So this would be invalid wudu if you hadn't washed your heel. Okay. So this is taking care with the wudu. Hadith number 43. And Abi Hurairah radiyallahu anhu قال قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم إن أمتي يدعون يوم القيامة غرا محجلين من آثار الوضوء. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he taught us that not only is wudu required for certain acts of worship. Anyone know any act of worship wudu is required for? Sorry? Tawaf. Yeah, tawaf.
Before sleeping.
Okay. It's a sunnah before sleeping. Yeah.
Quran.
The Quran. Okay, Quran and prayer. The main ones are the tawaf, the Quran, and the prayer. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said that in addition to this, one of the benefits of making the wudu is that on the Day of Judgment, the Muslims, they will be recognized by the traces of the wudu. So if somebody, imagine how many times a day you make wudu, maybe 4 or 5 times every day you make wudu. Even though the wudu in this dunya, it leaves no mark, on the Day of Judgment, these marks, they will show. They will show, and these people, they'll be ghurran. Ghurran means, have you seen a horse? On the forehead of the horse, what do you sometimes have? Like a black horse, you have a white streak. So this is ghurran. And muhajjalin means sometimes on the same horse or a different horse, you may see that the horse is jet black. However, above its hoofs, it's white. You've seen the white, the legs of the horse, they are white. The Prophet ﷺ is making tashbih, he's making a comparison and saying that on the Day of Judgment that the Muslims, you can distinguish who is a Muslim because you will see the parts of his body he washed during the wudu shining. So they'll be shining bright, his hands, his arms, his face, his feet, all of these limbs, they will be shining, and this is the way that the believers, they will be known. What about the Muslim who never prays? And because he doesn't pray, he hardly ever makes wudu. Then how bright will his shining be? So this is غُرًّا مُحَجَّلين. Hadith number 44, and Aisha رضي الله عنها قالت كان النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم يعجبه التيمن في تنعله وترجله وطهوره وفي شأنه كله. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Aisha radiallahu anha, she reports, he would love to do things on the right hand side. So he always gave preference to anything, especially if it was something noble, he always gave preference to the right. And then she gave some examples, putting on the shoe, tana'ulihi. So whenever he put a shoe on, he would put the shoe on with the right foot. Islam, it teaches us nizam, it teaches us discipline. And then taking off the taking off the shoe is of the left foot. And we give other examples of left foot, right foot.
Walking in the house.
Toilet.
Toilet, where else?
Walking in the masjid.
No, not walking in the masjid. And entering the masjid. Entering the masjid or leaving the masjid. Okay, so this is also the right foot is used for entering the masjid and left foot for leaving the masjid. Anyone do this?
Entering the Kaaba.
Sorry?
Entering the Kaaba.
You only do it in the Kaaba, mashallah. Good for you. Okay, so it's a good start, mashallah. Start in the Kaaba and then inshallah bring it to your local masjid. Then we have the hadith that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, and Abi Hurairah radiyallahu, sorry, the rest of the hadith is tarajjulihi. Tarajjulihi is brushing his hair. Okay, so how must the hair have been? The Prophet ﷺ, sometimes he had a parting in the middle of his hair, so first of all he would brush on the right hand side and then on the left hand side. وَطُهُورِهِ وَفِي شَأْنِهِ كُلِّهِ, and tuhurihi meaning in his wudu, in his ghusl, he would give preference to the right hand side, وَفِي شَأْنِهِ كُلِّهِ, and other things. Hadith number 46, and Uthman ibn Affan رضي الله عنه قال قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم لا يتودع رجل يحسن وضوءه ويصلي الصلاة إلا غفر له ما بينه وبين الصلاة حتى يصليها. The Prophet ﷺ, he said that whenever someone he does his wudu properly and then he prays and then yes, he prays until the next prayer and then he offers the next prayer, except that because of this wudu, the sins between the two prayers, they will be forgiven. Okay, so between the two prayers will be forgiven as long as you made the wudu properly. What kind of sins will be forgiven? The minor sins. All of these hadith are regarding the minor sins. And what's the difference between a major sin and a minor sin? A sin is a sin. Okay, the difference is that there's a specific punishment either in this dunya or in the akhirah. Or that, for example, the Prophet ﷺ, he cursed the one who had a riba, for example, or someone who committed murder, or zina, or something like this. Then these are all regarded as major sins. So the minor sins are the smaller sins where there isn't a specific mention of any punishment or any wording which would make it into a major sin. So by making the wudu and then praying the next prayer, this covers him for any sins committed. Now, hadith number 47, Anas ibn Malik radiyallahu anhu قال كان النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم يغتسل بالصاع إلى 5 أمداد ويتودع بالمد. This hadith is telling us about economizing in the usage of water. So when we make the wudu, many people, they leave the tap on and they don't know that the sunnah is actually to economize in the wudu. And the hadith, it says that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he would make ghusl with sa'. And sa' arba'atu amdad, which is 4 handfuls of water. So an average sized man, his palms, because obviously the size of the palms will differ from man to man. The average sized person's hands, if he got 4 scoops of water, then this would be sufficient for the ghusl of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. As for the wudu, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he would use 1 scoop of water. And in fact, in the explanation of the hadith, Sheikh Hassan al-Husayni, who is the one who actually compiled these 500 hadith, he actually says that he performed an experiment where he tried to make the ghusl using 4 handfuls, and he found that it was enough. And he tried to make the wudu using 1 scoop of water, and he found that this was also enough. So inshallah, sometimes when you have to. Anyone made wudu with small amount of water, like for example on the Hajj in Arafah or Muzdalifah, sometimes there's a shortage of water, correct? So you have to sometimes make wudu with just a small bottle of water. It can be done. But again, you wash your limbs marra. You wash your limbs once. Hadith number 48, and Abi Hurairah radiyallahu anhu قال قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم إن المؤمن لا ينجس. That the believer, he never becomes najasa. And the background to this hadith is that once Abu Hurairah radiyallahu anhu, he was in a state of janaba. Anyone ever know what janaba is? Okay, janaba means when somebody has had a relationship with his wife, then obviously he doesn't have wudu. He's now in a state of, they call it al-hadath al-akbar. Hadath al-akbar, and to remove this metaphorical impurity, he has to make ghusl. So when a man has a relationship with his wife, he has to have, and she has to have ghusl. Ever know this? This is called being in a state of janaba. So Abu Huraira was in a state of janaba, and he incorrectly thought that because he was in a state of janaba, he was dirty. So when he saw the Prophet ﷺ, he felt ashamed to go and sit with the Prophet ﷺ. So instead he hid and he went home and he made ghusl. And then when he saw the Prophet ﷺ again, the Prophet ﷺ said to him, "Al mu'min la yanjus," that the believer is never impure, meaning that even if he had been in a state of janaba, he could have sat with the Prophet ﷺ. Is it permissible to shake hands with someone in the state of janaba? Yeah. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Yeah. Is it permissible for someone to eat with somebody in a state of janaba? Yes, it is. It's desirable. It's makruh. They say you should make the ghusl as soon as you can. However, it is permissible. It is permissible to eat, to shake hands, to touch somebody in the state of janaba. So a Muslim, he may have some najasa on him from time to time, but he himself is never considered to be like a piece of najasa. So the Prophet ﷺ said, "In al-mu'min la yanjus." Just the state of janaba, it doesn't make you physically as an impure person. Hadith number 49, عبد الله بن عمرو رضي الله عنهما قال قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم إذا جاء أحدكم الجمعة فليغتسل. Now whenever any of you comes to Jumu'ah, you know the Jumu'ah, the Friday prayer, فليغتسل, he should have a ghusl. Is this an obligation? You have to have a ghusl. You have to have it, or sometimes you're in a hurry, so you don't have it. Sorry?
You have to.
You think, okay. If you have to, then what you're saying is it's wajib fard. And if you're saying it's highly recommended, what are you calling it? Yeah, mustahab or sunnah mu'akkada, an emphasized sunnah. According to most of the ulama, they say sunnah mu'akkada. It's emphasized sunnah. It's something which you should not try to miss. You try to have it. Okay, if you're sometimes in a situation where you really are in a hurry, then inshallah you still go to Jumu'ah. You don't leave Jumu'ah, you make sure you have wudu. However, every Muslim man and woman attending Salat al-Jumu'ah should try to have a ghusl on the day of Jumu'ah. And the method of the ghusl is the same as the ghusl of janaba. Exactly the same as the ghusl of janaba. This hadith, some of the scholars, they say it's an obligation. However, the majority say it's sunnah mu'akkada, and emphasized sunnah. Hadith number 50, عن جابر بن عبد الله رضي الله عنهما قال قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم جعلت للأرض مسجدا وطهورا. He said that the earth has been made for me a masjid and a place or a means of purification. What do we mean the whole earth is a masjid? Does this mean we can just pray at home and it's a masjid, and we can pray in the street and it's a masjid? What do we mean by a masjid?
I think you can pray anywhere and it's clean.
Yeah, you can pray anywhere. You can pray anywhere. Obviously, for a man to pray in the masjid, this is preferable. However, as long as it's not like a graveyard or a place of najasa, a place of impurity, then technically you can pray anywhere. You can pray in a field, you can pray in a car park, you can pray in an office, you can pray anywhere. And it's surprising how many people they miss the prayer when they're out and about, because they have this concept that you can only pray at home or in this masjid. It's kind of secular idea. But Islam is easy. In the previous nations, whenever it was time to pray, where did they pray? They would only pray in their places of worship, in their ma'bad. So the Jews and the Christians, they would only offer prayer in their churches, in their synagogues. However, Muslims, we can offer the prayer anywhere. As for means of purification, what does this mean? The earth has been made a means of purification.
If you don't have water, you can.
Yeah. It's called, what's this called? Tayammum. It's called tayammum. So the general rule is that when you need to pray, you need to have wudu. You need to make wudu, and you need to have ghusl if you're in a state of janaba. However, there could be a situation when there is no water, or that the doctor has said to you that you shouldn't use water because it's either going to make your illness worse or delay your recovery. So in this situation, we have a rukhsa. It's called a rukhsa, like a dispensation, which is in that situation you can use dust, and you strike You strike the dust and you wipe like this, and you can pray. So it shows us the ease of Islam. That Islam is here for all places and all times and for all situations. Anyone ever had to make tayammum before? Yes, so sometimes maybe you have to make tayammum, especially if you're ill. You may have to make tayammum. So it's good to be aware of this. Hadith number 51. عن عمرو بن أمية رضي الله عنه قال رأيت النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم يمسح على عمامته وخفيه. That one of the companions, he said he saw the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم wipe on his imama. Anyone know what imama is? Yeah, it's like a turban, like a turban. However, sunnah is that the turban should have, what should it have at the back?
Like a piece of like.
Yeah, they call it like a tail, veil. They call it a tail. Okay, this is the way the Prophet said our turban differs from the turban of the people of the book, because they would wear imama as well. So he would say, I have a tail. Anyone seen a tail? I usually wear it on Eid. I have a tail on my imama. So this is sunnah to have imama. Even you could say the Sikhs, they wear like imama. So it's good that if you do wear the imama to have the tail. Otherwise, it's quite possible that somebody may mistake you for a Sikh. So the Prophet ﷺ, obviously it's difficult to put the imama on, isn't it? It's it's a lot of work, and so it's difficult to take it off. So the Prophet ﷺ, when he made wudu, he would wipe, start from the front of his head, and he would wipe over his imama. Okay, not over the tupi. The tupi is easy to take off. However, the imama, you can wipe over the imama if you're wearing the imama. Anyone wear imama? Sometimes, okay, sometimes. So you can wipe over the imama. Similarly, anyone think of anything else you can wipe over in the prayer? Socks. Okay, however, it's different because the imama is the wiping on the head and socks is the wiping on the feet. How do you wipe the socks? Anyone know? Just the top. Just the top. Yeah. Ali radiallahu anhu, he said if that the religion had been according to logic, where would you have wiped? Underneath. Why? Because that's the dirty bit. The top bit, there's no dirt on the top part of the sock, underneath of the sock. So the word used, yeah.
Is that normal socks or just khuf?
I was just coming to this, yeah. So in the hadith, we have use the word khuf, and the word khuf is for a leather sock. Anyone had a debate with somebody about this issue before? Okay, it's very, very common. I went to a workplace prayer room and someone had stuck on the wall that don't pray behind anybody who wiped on their socks. I've taken a picture of it somewhere. But this again shows us intolerance. It's true that according to the Hanafi madhab, anyone ever know the four madhahib? In the Hanafi madhab, the sock has to be of khuf, has to be a khuf. Similarly, the Shafi'i madhab and the Maliki madhab, they say that the wiping is only permissible on the leather sock. You know this? However, in the Hanbali madhab, which is one of the four recognized schools of thought, they are schools of fiqh, they say it's permissible to wipe on, they call this jawrab. The word they use is jawrab. Jawrab is the same as a cotton sock. So inshallah it's permissible, and even the contemporary scholars of today, the well-known mashayikh, the likes of Sheikh Uthaymeen, rahimahullah ta'ala, and others, they all say it's permissible to wipe on cotton socks. However, the sock, you should try to avoid having too many holes in the sock. And the sock must cover the ankle bone. It can't be sports socks. Some of the brothers, they wear sports socks which are below the ankle bone. So you must cover the area which you normally wash. However, inshallah, it's permissible. Okay, the well-known mashayikh, and it's a classical position in the Hanbali madhab as well. If you look in the mutun, in the text of the Hanbali madhab, it's written that Imam Ahmad, rahmatullahi alayhi, Ahmad bin Hanbal, he held. And just because the other madhahib say this doesn't mean he's wrong. He was also a mujtahid scholar. He was a major scholar, and the ummah accepted. And these are acceptable differences in the fiqh. So yeah, according to some of the madhahib, they say it has to be of leather. However, position in the madhab of Imam Ahmad is permissible to wipe on the cotton sock. So there's nothing wrong with it. One brother said his wife said his wudu was wrong, and Islam Bradford have taught you to wipe on socks, and it's wrong. Okay, so it's nothing to do with Islam Bradford. This is going back to the scholars of old. Okay, everyone happy with this? Okay, if somebody doesn't want to wipe on the socks, it's fine, but we shouldn't have a problem with it, because we should pray behind people of different madhahib. Like I wipe on my socks. It's quite possible that at Jumu'ah, I didn't wash my feet. You know, I wiped them. Of course, you have to have had a wudu. There are other conditions as well. Like you can't just wipe on your socks. You must have washed your feet and had a full wudu. Okay, everyone with me? Okay, like for example, every day I make wudu for Salat al-Fajr. I put my socks on, and then for most of the day, I will wipe on my socks thereafter. Anyone do this? Yeah, so there's nothing wrong with this. This is an acceptable position, and there's no problem with this. So I just wanted to clarify this issue. Yeah, of course, there are other conditions as well. Like for someone who's resident, like you and I, how many hours? 24 hours. And for a traveler? 72. 3 days and 3 nights. Well done. Hadith number 52. عن أبي هريرة رضي الله عنه قال قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم إذا شرب الكلب في إناء أحدكم فليغسله 7. Rasulullah said that if a dog drinks from a container, then you should wash the container 7 times. And in a hadith in the collection of Imam Muslim, then the first time should be with earth. So, as we all know that in Islam, a dog is an unclean animal. It's an unclean animal. So if a dog drank from a container, then you can use that container for drinking from or eating from. However, you must wash it 7 times because of the bacteria. You know, the dog is an unclean animal. And the first time, as some of the ulama, they said you could even use like a disinfectant or something instead of using soil. So this is the teachings of Islam, how it safeguards your health. Okay. A common question people ask about dogs is what happens if a dog brushes past you? Okay, what should you do? Anyone have this issue before? Especially if you go out into the great outdoors, then it's difficult to avoid a dog. Is that a problem? You have to change your trousers in a dog?
Is there a difference about
Oh, only if it's wet, yeah. So if the dog was wet or the dog licked you with its saliva, only if there was transfer of moisture, then it would be a problem. If the dog was dry and just brushed past you, then there's no issue with praying with those clothes and it doesn't affect your wudu or anything else. Everyone clear? Okay. Then we come to the second chapter. There's 2 more hadith. Bab Sunnan Al-Fitrah, the chapter of the Fitrah. Fitrah is a term used for the natural state in which man was created, or man was created. It's called Fitrah. Like we say, كل مولود يولد على الفطرة, that every child is born on the Fitrah. فأبواه يحودانه أو ينصرانه أو يمجسانه. And then his parents make him into a Christian, a Jew, or a fire worshipper. So this is one use of the word Fitrah. Fitrah is also related to aspects of cleanliness, which the human being is naturally inclined towards. Anyone know any actions of cleanliness which is in the Fitrah, which is described as Sunan al-Fitrah? Sunan is like recommended actions of the Fitrah, although some of them, they are an obligation. Okay, circumcision. Circumcision is one of the Sunan al-Fitrah. However, just because it's Sunnah doesn't mean it's not an obligation. Inshallah, for men, it's an obligation to be circumcised. Okay. Okay, in this hadith, the Prophet ﷺ, he mentioned خمس من الفطرة. عن أبي هريرة رضي الله عنه قال قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم خمس من الفطرة الختان والاستحداد ونتف الإبط وتقليم الأظفار وقص الشارب. Prophet ﷺ said that 5 things are from the fitrah, as things you should try to do. First of all, al-khitan. Khitan is circumcision, which is removal of the foreskin from the head of the penis of a man. Okay, so this is something which we should do because it traps urine and dirt. This is something. It's wajib. It's wajib. It's an obligation to do this. Istihdad. Istihdad is removing the pubic hair. Removing the pubic hair, which is in the pubic region. Removing this. Some people ask, what about hair on the back side? Should you remove this as well? I thought it was a strange question, but it is actually mentioned in some of the books of fiqh. And they say the qubul. So the qubul is the front area and the dubur. So the dubur is the back area. If there is excessive hair growth there, then again it can be removed. For most people, the hair growth is primarily to the front, correct? So this should be removed. You can use like a razor or something like this and shave the private, just above, like if you like, the penis or that area. Then we have natful ibd, which is plucking the hair under the armpit. Again, this is the area where you get like sweat and dirt. So again, from cleanliness, they're removing the armpit hair. Even though the word is plucking, inshallah, it's permissible to use a blade. Most of us probably use a razor for the armpits as well. The sunnah is to pluck the hairs. I can't remember, I think it was Imam Malik said, I tried to pluck the hairs, but I found it too painful. So then he started to shave his armpits. What's the time limit for this? Anyone know the time limit? 40 days, yeah, 40 days for shaving and removing armpit hair, armpit and pubic hair. Then we have taqlim al-adfar, which is clipping the nails, both the hand nails and the feet nails. This should be done regularly. And qassu shari, which is trimming the mustache. Trimming the mustache. And the Prophet ﷺ, he said that the way we differentiate ourselves from the people of the book is how? With regards to the beard and mustache. Trimming the mustache, because even now, I came from Jerusalem, many of the Orthodox Jews, they have big beards. Okay, the way you will recognize them, of course they wear the other costumes, but the way you can recognize them is by looking at the mustache. Looking at the mustache, you can tell the Muslims, even like Sikhs, they don't bother with the mustache. When you look at the Muslim, you can see, like for example, here's one I did earlier. Okay, my mustache is usually grade 1. So this is the way to do it. Hadith number 54. And Abdullah ibn Umar radiyallahu anhuma قال قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم خالفوا المشركين وفروا اللحى واحفوا الشوارب. Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, differ from the polytheists and let the beard grow. وفروا اللحى, let the beard grow, and واحفوا الشوارب. Okay, we've dealt with the mustache. واحفوا الشوارب again is be excessive in reducing the length of the mustache. As for the beard, is it sunnah to grow the beard or is it something else? What do we think? A wajib, fard? Anyone have any ideas? Is it not sunnah? I thought it was sunnah. Or is it wajib? Okay, this is a confusion in terminology, because sunnah is sometimes used to mean all the hadith, or everything the Prophet ﷺ did is called sunnah. You have the Quran and you have the sunnah. Within the sunnah, there are some actions which are obligatory and other actions which are mustahab. And another word for mustahab is what? Is sunnah. So we have sunnah. So we say the beard is sunnah in the sense that it's found in the hadith and from the practice of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. As for al-ahkam al-taklifiyya al-khamsa, the actual ruling on the beard, so it can either be wajib, fard, mustahab, mubah, makruh, and haram. So every action in Islam is one of 5. Okay, according to all the ulama, Hanafi madhab, Shafi'i madhab, Hanbali madhab. Some of them they say that in the Shafi'i madhab they have something else. I don't know, but most of the classical scholars they say you have to have a beard. Correct? Okay, they differ regarding the length of the beard. There is discussion. However, for a man to shave the beard off every day, this is something which is haram. This is something which is haram. And the Prophet ﷺ, once he met the Majus, the fire worshippers, and their habit was that they would shave the beard, and what would they do with the mustache? They would have long mustache. When the Prophet ﷺ saw them, he turned away, because it was like looking at someone who had mutilated themselves. And then we have the issue of imitating a woman. Okay, one of the most obvious forms of imitation of a woman is what? Shaving the beard. If somebody can't grow the beard, like I don't know, like for example Malaysian people of that ethnicity, they can't grow the beard. That's not a problem if you can't grow the beard. But the problem is that if you can grow a beard but you choose to remove the beard. It's not something I always talk about. Some brothers, the beard is everything. When I see a Muslim brother, then inshallah we have good thoughts of him. This is one aspect of his deen. However, if someone was shaving the beard, then they have committed Saghair, and he could even be from the Kaba'ir if he did it every day. Yeah.
Well, praying behind someone who regularly shaves the beard.
The issue of praying behind someone who regularly prays the beard is that they could be regarded as a fasiq. And this is, in fact, in the Hanbali madhab, they say that the imam cannot be a fasiq, which is like a wrongdoer. However, this is problematic because Okay, the beard is one issue, but many people, what about the person who has a mortgage? Is that person a fasiq? That person is also a fasiq. So when we start looking at individuals, very few people have the right to lead the prayer. So it becomes very, very problematic. Best thing is anyone who's Muslim, you pray behind them and you don't make an issue about the beard. Although I have seen situations where brothers have stopped a brother without a beard leading the prayer, but it would depend. If it's a regular imam, like for example in Egypt, most of the imams, they're clean shaven. Yeah? Most of the masajid you go to, they're clean shaven. So what are you going to do? Say to the imam, you can't lead the prayer? He's the imam. So we say that the beard is sunnah. All of these things are sunnah, meaning from the teachings of the Prophet ﷺ. But as for the ruling, it's wajib. It's an obligation. So inshallah, these are the hadith. We read up to hadith 54 from hadith 55 inshallah after Salatul Maghrib. Bi mashiatillah next week.